How's it going, everyone? Today I want to talk to you about some of my belt knives, some of my experiences, the ones I've used quite a bit, some of the ones that I'm trying out, the one I intend to be my main belt knife going into 2025, even while I experiment a little bit with some of the others, my thoughts on the belt knives that I've been using, and maybe one of the alternatives that I made a video about maybe a year ago. Stick with me. Let's get started. Alright guys, so maybe a year ago I posed the question, how big does a woodsman's knife need to be? Now, when I posed that question, I started using this knife. This is a Mora eldris, and I used it for quite a bit. What I found was that yes, it is too short for me. It works great as a little whittler. It works great as a secondary knife. But another thing I found is I enjoy carrying a pocket knife. Regardless, I enjoy carrying a folder, and I started finding myself more and more going back to the folder over this. It was just more comfortable to carry. It seemed to work just as good for a lot of the things I was using it for, but as a fixed blade, I didn't go out too often with only this. I always ended up with something else. One thing I noticed is that it does dull just a little quicker than something longer, even though the steel's good. It's a stainless steel. Just that short blade length, you're using all of the blade almost every time you do anything, cutting, and the angle, like if I was cutting steak on a plate, it would almost be like this. It's, you know, it's a good little whittler, and it works, but I just would not, I didn't like using it as my main blade all the time. And it's not a belt knife, although you could get a little sheath holder. I think they make a ring for it. I think I have one on one of my Mora garbergs that you can put this down in, if this paracord went on it like this, and carry it on your belt like that. I don't see a point unless you're some kind of ultralight backpacker or something. Me, I just attach some paracord to it. And what I would do is, if I were going to throw it in my pocket, I'd loop it through my belt so that I wouldn't lose it. I could pull it out, put it back. When I got somewhere that I was going to be for a long time, a lot of times I would throw this over my neck and just use it like a neck knife. The knife that I had been carrying before that is this knife, the Joker Campero, and I'll get to that in just a second. Probably, I've had a lot of knives over the years, and I may do a video on my experience with fixed blades knives. I've been carrying them since I was a child in the woods for different reasons. The knife that I guess really kicked off me really truly experimenting with fixed blades specifically for this purpose, where I had the budget to buy the ones I saw that I liked, was this Mora garberg. And I really liked this knife, the knife itself. I really enjoyed this knife. I've got it lubed up pretty good with mineral oil right now. But I hated this sheath. I thought I'd like it. I hated this sheath. So pretty quickly, I started looking for something else, and that's where we get back into this Joker Campero here. And I've had a lot of questions, people asking me in comments, but a lot, even direct messages, what I think of this knife, if I still like this knife, and I do very much still like this knife. It's a stainless steel knife, flat grind. It's very sharp when you get it, and it stays pretty sharp. It's pretty easy to sharpen back, especially for a stainless steel knife, and it comes with a good leather sheath with a dangler, which I took off. I'm not the biggest fan of danglers. And I really do like this knife. I carried this knife. I made a video about it in one of my review videos. The fit and finish on it is excellent for what you pay for these. I do want to buy some more Joker knives for that reason. I really like this knife. But I'm a big fan of carbon steel knives, as I'm sure a lot of you are as well. I'm also a big fan of Dave Canterbury, and his thought process is on a true belt knife. So this knife, even though I carried it a lot, I wanted a carbon steel knife. This is great for small carving tasks, food prep. It's very slicey, even as thick as that blade is. That blade is pretty thick. I think it's 3.5 millimeters for a knife this short, but it's still incredibly slicey. I mean, it just works great. The handles are smooth, no rough spots at all. They're almost too smooth. Like if you really had slick hands, or your hands were just kind of numb from the cold, you could drop this. It could slip through your hands. Actually, it probably cut you. It's so smooth. But I love this knife. After a while, though, I just wanted something else, and I decided I wanted to start really heavily experimenting with knives. Before, I would buy a knife once a year if I had, you know, the budget. Sometimes 5 or 6 or 8 years in between buying knives, depending on what I had money-wise and how much time and attention I wanted to put into it. Like I said, I really like the garberg. I just don't like the sheath. So I ended up buying another garberg to try out this leather sheath. Now, I didn't think I'd like that flap. I love the sheath. This is a very good sheath. I've been carrying this. I probably switched from carrying the campero to the garberg, switching back to the garberg early spring of this year. As you can see, this garberg doesn't have the wear and tear on as the other one, because I haven't been doing a lot of like bushcraft tasks with this. I have done some carving, but mostly just slicing meat and things like that. And I've really started leaning into that folder thing again, having this as my belt knife and then using a folder as a carving knife, kind of like some of the stuff you would read in like Kephart and Nessmuk, how they used a knife. They would carry a belt knife. They also carried a folder they did a lot of their whittling with, and I've been doing a lot of that. But I am a fan of this sheath, and wish I had bought it to begin with and would buy it again. Really love this knife. Couple knives that I bought to experiment with, that I just want to carry as a backup, maybe just see how I like them, is this is a Green River knife. This is one you can buy them with just the blade or just the metal, and you can add your own handles. I bought this with the handles on it. And this sheath, it doesn't come with a sheath. I bought this as a kit from Hobby Lobby. It was undyed, so you have to stitch it together yourself and put the rivets in, and then I dyed this sheath just to give me something to tote this in. Really like this knife. This knife has a very long history. Green River knives have been around since the early 1800s, this style of knife. I've heard this called the hunter knife. I've heard this called the fish knife, I believe now. If you look it up, it's the fish knife if you want this exact model. And they make a few different ones. They make like butcher style blades and things. But these have been around forever. It's a carbon steel blade. It's thin, slicey, razor sharp. And they were very well loved back in the times of like the mountain men and the trappers and the West. They sold, you know, tons of these knives. Look up the history on these knives. It's astounding. I wanted one of these for my collection, and I do want to use it some. The one thing I don't like is I'm afraid that if I'm not real careful, my hand's going to slide up on that blade. But I'm still going to use it, especially for food prep. You'll probably see this in videos at some point. Just me using it. I probably wouldn't baton with it. You could. I think I've seen some videos of people doing it. And then here's another one that I'm trying out right now. It's not my main belt knife. I'm just trying it out. This is a Bps Adventure. It's a 1066, I believe, or 1075 high carbon steel. It's 1066. It's a Ukrainian made knife, 5-inch blade, Scandi grind. It does have a 90-degree spine on it, which some people love. Now you're noticing the color of it. I got this knife and it was not this color. I done a little bit of light batoning to start a fire with it right after I got it, and even though I had oiled it prior and oiled it after, it immediately started showing rust spots. So I did something I don't normally do with knives, and I decided to force patina. I did 2 different patinas on this knife. I did a mustard patina and a vinegar patina. That's why you got, I don't know if you can see this like stripes, that's the mustard, and then that light patina behind it, that's the vinegar. Just to kind of give it some protection from the rust. And it works okay. It's pretty sharp. It's got the 90-degree spine, like I said. I do like the design of it. And it comes with a heck of a good leather sheath and with a dangler that I can't take off. And some people like that. I don't like danglers. And it comes with this fire steel here, which this is like a $30 or $40 knife on Amazon. So can't beat it for the price. I really want to get out, put it through its paces, and just see if it's just a really good budget knife for an outdoorsman like me. A little big for some tasks, but this size would be good as just an all-around belt knife if you really need to do fire prep and things like that. 5-inch knife to 6 inches, a little better. I guess you could say all-in-one tool option. I don't find that I need a one-tool option. I'm not in a situation where I can't get help most of the time, or if I was, I can probably make something else work. Now to the knife I'm most excited about, the knife that I intend to put a lot of work into, a lot of use going into 2025, and probably will be either on my hip or in my pack if I'm testing something else for several months to come, and maybe longer than that. And that is this knife, and it has been around for a while. This is the Esse JG5. It's a Nessmuk style knife. Micarta handles. When I first saw this knife, I thought these would be uncomfortable handles. They're not. One thing that really drew me to it is I was looking up videos on it, and I saw that it has an uncoated spine, 90-degree spine, but it's uncoated, and it's 1095 high carbon steel, which means not only can I strike a ferro rod, is I could use a rock and char cloth to start a fire if I had to. I can do that. I really like that in an all-around belt knife. It's a flat grind, but I find I spend a lot of time, unless I intend to do bushcraft tasks, mostly food prep, potatoes, vegetables, meat. I like to cook a lot of meat when I'm in the outdoors, and this style knife just lends itself to a lot of those camp tasks where, yeah, I can still whittle out an extra tent stake if I lost one. I can, if I just want to practice some trap tricks, I could do that with this knife. It's 5-inch blade, or almost 5 inches. I think it's 4.8, right at 5. So it's long enough to do some light batoning. And a lot of people say, when they look at this knife, they say, well, I wouldn't baton that knife. But if you look at the width of this knife, I believe they're almost similar, very similar, the width of the blade of this knife versus the garberg. I mean, it looks, this garberg, the blade stock on this looks thicker because this is a narrower this way, but they're the same or close, very, very close. I think this might be 3.2 and this might be like 3.1. I'd have to look at the stats, but it's so close. I'll probably go over that more when I do an in-depth review, and I want to do that after I've used the crap out of this knife. This is my first Esse knife. I've always kind of stayed away because of the coated blade thing. But I saw a couple videos. A guy was talking about that, which made me interested, and then he was prepping some food with it, and this is exactly what I've been looking for in a Nessmuk style blade, which I've been wanting to try out. So I'm really excited about this knife. This is good for, food processing when it comes, or game processing. Like, you're killing a deer, breaking it down in camp because you're going to go back out and hunt. small game, things like that. There's a few more knives from them on my list similar to this, with some similar specific tasks that I am very interested in trying out. Along with, there's another company. I have to be slow in buying their knives because they're a little out of my price range, but I definitely want to try out a couple of their knives as well. And you will probably see at least one of them next year. Well-known company. But just giving you my take on it. A lot of people aren't as into fixed blade knives, or they carry a knife and use it for everything regardless if it's best for the task. I like carrying something that's good for the task, and this is just an old, like the old butcher knife almost style that a lot of the older people carried. And to me, that's perfect for what I like to do. Like I said, it's still small enough to, I can clean a fish, a squirrel, I can break down a deer, you know, I can choke up on it. Like I said, you'll probably see me use this a ton. So that's just an update on the knives that I am going to carry. And I'm also at some point going to make a video on some of the fixed blades, or the folding knives I've been carrying, my thoughts on that, and keep you guys up to date on what I've been carrying with that as well for EDC and in the woods, because I almost always have a folder on me in the woods. It would be a very rare thing that I don't. And I have a folder on me every single day of some sort, every day, usually more than one. And when I first got this, I kind of hoped to replace the idea of carrying a folder. I was carrying a fixed blade as an EDC knife then as well, which I've moved away from other reasons I might discuss later. But for me, this is just a backup. This is just a backup. It is a good little knife. I do like this knife, but for me, it's just a backup. So guys, if you stuck with me this far, just to summarize, really excited to, you know, show this knife in an in-depth review after I've thoroughly tested it. This is the type of knife that I could buy more than one of, like I have a garberg, just to have an extra, or I might even oil one up and put it up. I really, really like this knife if it performs the way I think it will. Still love the garbergs. Do hate this sheath. If I'm not in a crazy wet environment, I wouldn't even want to carry this sheath at all. This is just something I would throw in a backpack as an emergency situation. I do love this sheath, and you will probably still see this in some videos. There's videos that I've made this year where you probably saw me using a pocket knife or doing other things, and this was on my hip or in the pack with me. It just works. It just works. It's nothing fancy, but it works. And as far as this Joker Campero goes, love the knife. I do want to buy some other knives from them just to try out that I'm curious about. They make great sheaths. This knife works. It's just not, I like to try out different things, and it's just not perfect enough for me to keep it as my main blade right now. Nothing against it, still carry it in the woods in a heartbeat. Especially if I knew I was going out in the rain, something like that, and I didn't want to take my 1095 knives, or my carbon steel knives, but and it works, but it's just not, I do want carbon steel on me, especially if I'm going to be out exploring, maybe going into some places I've never been. Anything could happen, but that's just me being overly specific. That's my take on some of the knives I've been carrying over the last year and a half at least. This one I've had longer than that. I've had this knife for 4 years, this first garberg. And I've tried out other knives since I've had it, while I had it, but it works, it does its thing. Hate the sheath. But and look up, if you haven't heard, which a lot of you probably have, look up Green River Knives. The history on them is amazing. So that's it, guys. If you stuck with me this far, thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and look forward to more content. I'm going to be discussing a lot of topics coming soon, and some of my my gear that I've bought that I'm trying out, and hopefully get out there and get some film out in the wilderness for you guys, doing the things I like to do, Seems like every time I have something planned, something comes up, life gets in the way, but hopefully coming soon. Thanks for watching, guys.